Alright mates, how's it going? In today's video, episode 9 of Day of the Dragon by Richard A. Knack. Let's go! Duncan! 'Tis too late, my elven lady. Your man's already dead. What a glorious tale to leave behind. Farisa did not care about glorious tales. What she cared about was that a brave man she had come to know all too briefly had died. The only comfort being that he'd managed to take one of the two dragons with him. However, the other dragon was still very much a threat. They could not remain here. Falstad quickly urged his griffin to dive in order to avoid the remaining creature's snapping jaws. It definitely seemed to be completely fixated on them specifically, and whilst Farisa held on for dear life, she couldn't help but wonder whether these beasts had come because of Ronin's mission. And it was in that moment that she realised she'd completely lost sight of the wizard a while ago. I don't see Ronin. I worry for another time. 'Tis more important that you hold tight. Again, Falstad pulled a sudden swift manoeuvre, so it was a good thing Farisa had been holding tight. Otherwise she would have been thrown off the bloody thing. But in doing so, they managed to avoid yet another attack from the pursuing dragon. Prepare for a battle, my elven lady. It appears we may have any other choice. Falstad then unsheathed his storm hammer, whilst Farisa cursed the loss of her bow. But, just before they and the dragon collided for an epic battle, a colossal form the colour of night dropped in among them. What in the name of... 'Twas another dragon, of immense proportions, and for some reason it was snapping at the smaller red one. Deathwing. That orc is either brave beyond compare, a fool, or without any control over his beast. If it were me, I'd not remain in such a fray. Some other griffin riders approached, and Farisa immediately scanned each of the newcomers. However, there was still no sign of Ronin. Malygos is dead. His mount lies drifting in the sea. But what about the wizard? I think 'tis obvious, my lady. Farisa clamped her mouth shut, knowing the dwarf probably spoke the truth. If Moloch's griffin had taken a tumble, hitting the ocean's surface below from this height would have been like slamming into solid rock. What should we do, Falstad? Deathwing is no warrior's friend. He'll no doubt come after us once he's finished with this lesser beast, and it would take 100 stormhammers just to dent his hide. Best we return, and let others know what we've seen. The rest of the dwarves seemed to be in agreement, but Farisa still felt like she couldn't give up just yet, despite the obvious. Falstad, Ronin's a wizard. He is likely dead, yes, but if not, if he still floats down there, he could need our help. You're daft if you forgive me saying so, my elven lady. No one could have survived a fall like that. Not even a wizard. Please, just one sweep of the surface, and then we can depart. Falstad frowned, whilst his warriors looked at him as if he'd gone mental. Very well. And Falstad then turned to address his men directly. Go back without us. We should be behind you before long. But if for some reason we don't return, make certain someone knows of the Dark One's reappearance. Go. So, the rest of the dwarves buggered off, whilst Falstad had his griffin dive closer to the sea below. On their way down, however, a pair of savage roars made both Falstad and Farisa look up in concern. Sounds like the posturing's over. They're about to fight. Wonder what that orc must be thinking. Farisa didn't give a shit about the orc. All she cared about was finding Ronin. And as soon as the griffin was hovering just a few yards above the water, she began surveying the area. Surely there had to be some trace of him. He had to be somewhere nearby. He'd managed to magic himself away from danger before. There's nothing here. Just a little longer. Again, savage cries above drew their attention. The dragon battle had begun, and it was pretty obvious that the lesser dragon was way out of its depth. With every attack, Deathwing's foe was leaving itself wide open. But for some reason, the Dark One wasn't capitalising on those opportunities. For some reason, Deathwing's left forepaw remained shut and close to his chest. Why is he holding back? However, Deathwing then caught hold of his adversary, utilising his tail, wings and every limb except his front left one, and in one swift motion tore a series of bloody gashes in the red dragon's torso and neck. That's it. We've searched long enough. Falstad's flagging griffin pushed skyward as best it could, whilst Farisa curiously watched Deathwing swipe even more wounds into his foe. The lesser beast then managed to free itself from Deathwing's grasp, and to no one's surprise, the red dragon started to cheese it. But strangely enough, the gargantuan black dragon did not pursue. Instead, he peered down at his closed paw, as if looking over something. Something, or someone. Falstad, we need to follow him. Falstad stared at Farisa, as if she'd lost her goddamned mind. Deathwing refused to use his one forepaw during that entire fight. It's because he has Ronin, I'm sure of it. And clearly the wizard's as good as dead, my elven lady. What would the Dark One even want with him, other than as a snack? If that was the case, then he would have eaten him already. He clearly has some need of him. Falstad grimaced. You ask too much. This griffin's weary. We need to land soon. Just, please, as far as we can go. I need to help him. I swore an oath. No oath would take you this far. But, despite his reluctance, Falstad went ahead and steered his mount after Deathwing, and Verisa said nothing more, knowing that Falstad had the right of it. For reasons unclear to her, she could not abandon Ronin to what seemed to be an obvious fate. Meanwhile, Graces still felt pretty achy after his battle with the Endless Hunger. He'd not informed the council of what had occurred. For now, the knowledge of Deathwing's human guise needed to be his and his alone. So the dragon wished to be king of Alterac, did he? Seemed a bit absurd, really. No, there was more to Deathwing's plan than a simple power grab. He desired only blood and chaos. He desired war. Graces may not have been able to tell the Kirin Tor, but there were others whom he could speak to. They'd rejected him over and over again, but perhaps this time they'd actually listen. So, Graces uttered some words and teleported directly to a cavern of ice and snow. The mage then walked through the icy chamber, spending about 5 paragraphs observing a whole bunch of frozen corpses and blocks of ice. Wendigos, ice trolls, an elf and 2 orcs, even a naga, all trespassers that had met the same grisly fate.
You are nothing, if not audacious.
Graces turned to see a large camouflaged blue form transform into something akin to a man. The legs were a bit too thin, and bent in awkward ways as if the guy had rickets. Malygos, how fare you?
Comfortable, when my privacy is left to me.
I would not be here if I had another choice.
There is always another choice. Leave. I would be alone.
Graces was determined not to be daunted by the cavern's master. Have you forgotten why you dwell so silently, Malygos? So alone. It's only been a few centuries since...
I forget nothing, least of all the days of darkness.
Then you remember what he who calls himself Deathwing did to you and yours. Malygos' face twisted, and his claws flexed.
I remember the promise, the covenant we made. Never death to another, the world guarded forever.
Until the betrayal.
The betrayal. Until Deathwing.
Graces kept one hand hidden, knowing he might have to use it at any moment for swift spellcasting. But the monstrous creature held himself in check.
The day of the dragon had already passed, and none of us saw anything to fear from him. He was but one aspect of the world, its most base and chaotic reflection. His day had come and gone with the most permanence. For the future, it said, for when the world would only have humans, elves and dwarves to watch over its life. Let all the factions, all the flights, the aspects come together, recreate, reshape the foul peace. And we would have the key to protecting the world, even after the last of us had faded away. And I stood with him and convinced the rest.
Graces again reminded himself that although the one before him despised Deathwing most of all, it did not mean that Malygos was going to help, or even allow Graces to leave this cavern alive.
And so, each dragon, each aspect, imbued it with a bit of themselves, bound themselves to it, forever put themselves at its mercy.
Forever ensuring it to be the one thing that could have power over them, although they did not know it then. Do you remember how deceiving it looked? What a simple-looking object it was. Graces then summoned an image of the demon soul, causing Malygos to gasp and cringe.
Take it away! Away!
Look at it, my friend. Look at the downfall of the eldest of races. Even an illusion of the artifact put so much fear in Malygos' heart that it took him more than a minute to force his gaze upon it. Forged by the magic that was the essence of every dragon, first created to fight the demons of the Burning Legion, and used by Deathwing to betray all others when the battle was done. Used by him against his very allies.
Cease this! The demon soul is lost, and the Dark One is dead.
Is he? Graces dismissed the image of the demon soul, replacing it with that of a human man, Lord Prester. This man, this mortal, would be the new king of Alterac, the heart of the Lordaeron Alliance, Malygos. Do you find anything familiar about him? The icy creature peered closely at the image, horror seemingly rising in his face.
This is no man.
Say it, Malygos. Say who you see.
Deathwing.
Yes, he who has been twice thought dead. He who wielded that demon soul, and forever ended any hope of the return to the age of the dragon. He who now seeks to manipulate the younger races into doing his treacherous bidding.
He will have them at war with one another.
Yes, Malygos. He will have them at war. Until only a few survive. At which point Deathwing will finish those. You know the world he desires. One in which there is only he and his selected followers.
I allied myself with him, and for this my flight was ruined. I am all that's left. The demon soul took my children. I lived only with the knowledge that he who had betrayed all had perished, that the cursed disc had been forever expunged.
As did we all, Malygos.
But he lives.
Yes, he lives, despite your sacrifices. Malygos then eyed Krasis closely.
I lost much. Too much. But you lost all too.
A vision of Alexstrasza then flashed in Krasis' mind, but the wizard quickly shook those painful memories away. Yes, I lost much, but I hope to regain something. For all of us.
How?
I would free Alexstrasza. At that, Malygos roared with mad laughter. For a very long time.
That would serve you well, provided you could achieve such an impossible goal. But what good does that do me? What do you offer me, little one?
You know what aspect she is, and you know what she may do for you. The laughter ceased, and Malygos hesitated.
She could not. Could she?
I believe that enough of a chance exists that it would be worth your efforts. Besides, what other future do you have? Malygos' draconic features intensified, with his shape finally taking its rightful form. But with his original form returned, so too did some of Malygos' misgivings. And he then asked the one question that Krasis had been dreading.
The orcs. How is it that the orcs can hold her? I've always wondered.
You know the only way they could keep her as prisoner, my friend.
So those insignificant creatures have the demon soul?
Yes, they have the demon soul. I do not think they know fully what they wield, but they know enough to keep Alexstrasza at bay. But that's not the worst of it.
What could be worse?
Krasis knew that he'd nearly pulled Malygos close enough to sanity to agree to help, but what he said next was absolutely crucial. I believe Deathwing now knows what I do, and he will stop at nothing until the cursed disc and Alexstrasza are both his.